Warning, this podcast contains spoilers for the season 1 finale of The Last of Us on HBO, plus some spoilers for The Last of Us Part 2, the video game, in our Nerd Out section. Be warned. Hello, my name is Jason Concepcion.
And I'm Rosie Knight.
And welcome to X-Ray Vision, the Crooked Media podcast, where we dive deep into your favorite shows, movies, comics, and pop culture.
On this episode, in the Airlock, we will be digging deep into The Last of Us.
That's right.
Season 1 finale.
Let's go.
AKA complaining about Marlene and all of her bad choices. Spoiler alert.
Oh, Marlene. Oh, anyway.
So many bad choices. In Nerd Out, we're going to have a theory on the possible Last of Us Part 3 video game. I love how much our Last of Us coverage is inspiring people to think about what could come next in the story.
Yes. And of course, if you want to jump around, check out the timestamps in the show notes. Coming up, the airlock. Stepping out of the airlock and into the hospital run by the Fireflies.
Badly run. Badly run.
Poorly run by the Fireflies. For the season 1 finale of The Last of Us on HBO Max. Let's get started. We open years ago. We see a pregnant woman fleeing through the woods from an infected. You hear the growls of the infected. This is Anna, Ellie's mother. She runs into a farmhouse. In the distance, we see the skyline of a city. I didn't ID it. Do we know what the city is?
I don't think so. She's running through the forest. They really horror it up. And then she's obviously trying to get to some kind of safe house.
Yes. Ellie's mother, Anna, is expecting that someone is going to meet her there. And she's calling out like, I'm here. No one is there. She's all alone. She flees upstairs, closes the door.
And she's like in labor at this point, by the way.
Labor.
She is in labor running from the infected. It is like really scary stuff.
It is a dire existential situation. She takes out her knife. It is the pearl-handled switchblade that Ellie carries. And she waits. She sits with her back against the wall, breathing hard. As Rosie mentioned, she's in labor. And the infected bursts in. A desperate fight ensues with Ellie's mom finally stabbing the infected in the brain.
Classic Ellie move. Nice shiv.
Killing it. Anna hears a cry. She looks down and she realizes that she gave birth in the middle of this fight. And she also sees that there's a bite on her leg. She cuts the cord as quick as she can to keep the infection from spreading from her to the baby, and then she lifts Ellie up to her face. Ellie is wailing, strong, fierce cries of being alive, and Anna says, "You fucking tell him, Ellie." As the baby goes, "Oh, you're so tough." Later on that night, 3 figures approach. One of them is Marlene, so this is the Fireflies. They find the house locked. They go inside. They find Anna upstairs with the newborn child in her arms. She's got a knife pressed against her neck.
Real badass. You can see where Ellie gets it from. Like, genetically badass.
She's like, at the hint that she might be losing control, she's ready to end it right there. And her wound is already showing signs of infection, and Marlene is just kind of broken by the sight of this. Anna says, "It's not your fault." Let me pause here. Looking at the history of Marlene in this season and the amount of just mind-boggling clown show decisions that Marlene will make over the course of this episode, I kind of wonder if it's not her fault.
It kind of is her fault. Look. I'm sorry.
Did Marlene cause this to happen?
I'm sorry to say.
Maybe.
Look, if Marlene and other Fireflies, even just Marlene and the 2 other people who show up, if they'd have been there, that would have been less likely that one infected would have gotten through. Maybe if they'd gotten there early and not been delayed, they could have safeguarded the house before a pregnant woman showed up. So actually, I think it is Marlene's fault. One of the many things this episode that is absolutely Marlene's fault.
We can't tell for sure, but I'm willing to put it on Marlene.
I'll say she's at least a tiny bit to blame.
I'm willing to put it on her. Marlene glances at the umbilical cord, and Anna says immediately, "I cut it before I was bit." Before.
It's a lie.
It's a lie.
But she does it just because I'm sure she feels like she knows Marlene well enough to know that Marlene might just shoot a baby in the head.
Now, it's a devastating lie, one of several devastating lies that we'll see over the course of this episode, because you wonder if Anna had told the truth, maybe there would have been a way to kind of reverse engineer this immunity and figure out what happened. Now, you raised a good you raised a good possibility before we started recording that surely the Fireflies would have taken this in the most horrific
way
direction.
possible.
Yeah.
I think the truth is, like, I love your point because it is absolutely heartbreaking because this is 14 years ago.
Yeah.
So there is a chance that we will be living in a world where Joel and Ellie never have to meet, where the infection is over, where there is a cure. Now, if you think about the reality of what we've seen of Fedra, of the absolute clown shoes behavior of the Fireflies and the fascism of Fedra, realistically, if they found out, as this episode seems to confirm, very famous, very beloved Last of Us fan theory, that the reason Ellie is immune is because her mother got bitten just before she was born, they would surely have just been putting pregnant people into hospitals and purposefully infecting them and trying to do this in a really horrific way. Like, I don't see a version where it is done well, but there is also, like you said, if one sensible, sane, non-terrible person knew this information, there is a totally different timeline that we could be living in.
So Anna asks Marlene to take Ellie to Boston and make sure she's safe. And Marlene's like, I can't do that. Anna is really pleading with her. She holds up the knife. She says, I want you to give her this. She puts in the swaddling. She's got Ellie swaddled like in a jacket. And she puts it in the swaddling. Her name is Ellie. Marlene's like, I can't. Marlene is crying. She and Anna have apparently known each other for their whole lives, they say. They're very good friends. Anna asks Marlene to, again, do this, do what needs to be done, take the baby, kill me before I turn. Marlene's like, I can't kill you. I can't do it. Anna begs, and then finally Marlene's like, okay. And she takes the baby, hands it off to one of her followers, and then she walks in, steals herself, walks in and kills Anna.
Also want to say, she specifically says to her follower, please cover the baby's ears before she shoots the baby's mom. That he does not cover the ears. The baby's just chilling. I'm surprised Ellie can even hear.
The Fireflies are morons.
They're just the worst. They're so...
I don't know, maybe if you weren't recruiting children.
Might help.
It might help. But these are, the Fireflies, the incompetence of the Fireflies cannot be overstated. We cut to Ellie. We're in the present. She's sitting in the back of a truck. She's lost in thought. You know, a lot of things have happened to bring our friends to this place, and it seems they're close to the end, and all of that is weighing on her. Joel comes over with some stuff he's looted, some Chef Boyardee, a boggle set, but Ellie is just in that funk.
Yeah, he's trying to bring back, like, the fun. He's making the Chef Boyardee jokes. He's found games. He doesn't really know what happened with David, but he can tell that something's changed because Ellie is not the kind of annoying, talkative, energetic person that she was. Now there's this weight to her, and it's obviously weighing on him, and he's trying to bring back those laughs, bring back that kind of energy that she had. It's this really interesting inversion of their personalities.
It's really Joel in dad mode at this point. You know, this is what you would do with a kid who's kind of like a teenager that
you want to play a game? You want your favorite food?
Yeah, what's going on? Joel says that he saw a guitar in the RV that was smashed. And he says, it got me thinking, maybe I should find one. I haven't played in forever. And of course, game players will know that this is a big part of Joel's character and a big thing that he hands off to Ellie. He wants to teach her how to play, but she is like barely listening again. She's like, yeah, that'd be great. And in a very kind of like, not present way.
Yeah.
And as they move forward toward their goal, they come to an obstacle, and Joel's like, well, here's a couple options we could use. And Ellie immediately knows what they're going to do. And we see that they have this shorthand now. They've really come so far together. As they move through a wrecked building, Joel boosts Ellie up through a hole. She drops a ladder down. But as the ladder comes down, she's distracted by something. She runs off. Joel is panicked. He doesn't know what happened. And then when we get up there with Joel, we realize that Ellie has found a giraffe. A wild giraffe escaped and survived from the zoo. Joel shows Ellie how to feed it, and it's this really beautiful, magical moment.
I was really interested to see if they would be able to translate the wonder of this moment from the game to the show, but they do, and it's all Bella. To have Ellie go from this disconnected, disassociative, really like
practical, real giraffe.
No way.
Yeah, real giraffe.
Oh my God.
Actual giraffe.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I love that. Doesn't surprise me. I mean, the bloater was practical. If you can do that, you can find a giraffe. But like Bella, the way that they kind of just bubble with this kind of effervescent laughter, like this is the best thing they've ever seen in their life. It's such a twist from seeing Ellie in that state where she doesn't even want to talk to Joel. She doesn't want to hear it. She doesn't want to be involved. And that's breaking Joel's heart. He's trying so hard to connect with her. But then in that moment, he gets it. And she's just laughing. And this is obviously like the best thing that's ever happened to her.
And you see it play on his face too, the smile that he has. And I think it's might be the only time post-apocalypse that we've seen Joel smile, like a real smile. And it's amazing. And then it wanders off, and Ellie's like, where is it going?
Yeah.
Like a little kid, and it's gone over to its herd.
Yeah, and we see them in the distance.
Joel and Ellie watch them kind of feeding and hanging out together. And then they have this little talk. Joel's like, is it everything you hope for? Kind of talking around what's going on. And Ellie's like, it's got its ups and downs. Joel is getting ready to try and broach the possibility with Ellie that, hey, I know there's a lot of hopes hanging on this, finding this doctor and hopefully saving the world, but, be prepared for the possibility that it might not work. I mean, after all, so many things have not worked on the way out here.
I love this moment so much because it's like this and the moment where he asked Tommy to take her. Those are those two big moments where everything could go in a totally different direction. And in this moment, I just wanted them so badly to go back to Jackson. I'm like, just do it. You don't need to go there. Just go and live your life. Like, listen to Joel. Do something for yourselves. Like, this has been a hard journey. Like, it's time.
He finally raises the thing that we've been, like, wanting him to do, where he's like, hey, we just call it off. We just go back to Tommy's and live life. And Ellie says that they can't. Quote, after all we've been through, everything I've done, it can't be for nothing. And she appreciates that Joel wants to protect her, and she acknowledges that he's done a really great job of that. But they have to go through with this. And she says, when we're done, we'll go wherever you want. I'll follow you anywhere you go. But there's no halfway with this. We have to finish what we started. Yeah.
And there's a great little throwback in that moment where she's like, the sheep ranch, the moon, like wherever you want to go. And you get another one of those smiles from Joel. Like, he's already picturing that life in his head. And they do such a great job in this opening sequence with the two of them of setting up exactly where Joel's mind is and what is important to him. And it just makes everything else so much more easy to understand as we get into this kind of brutal finale.
They find an old army hospital. This is one of the first kind of camps, one of the first kind of responses that the government threw up in the wake of outbreak. And Joel reveals that he had been in one of these on day 2 after Sarah had passed. It was for the wound on his head, which he had previously kind of framed as like a shootout. I got in a shootout with a guy and he missed and I missed. But then he admits that it was self-inflicted. He had tried to kill himself. He said that he wasn't scared. He wanted to do it. He didn't see any point in going forward. But at the last second, he flinched, and he doesn't have any idea why. And Ellie says, basically, I'm glad that you didn't do that.
Yeah.
And she says...
But she's freaked out, too. It's like a really great moment where she kind of realizes the humanity of this, like, Terminator-esque character who's been kind of following her through this. She's like, I'm glad that didn't work out, but she's still kind of dealing with the fact that he just admitted to like trying to kill himself and kind of this great trauma that he's been holding.
And then there's that wonderful moment where she says, well, so time heals all wounds, I guess. And Joel looks at Ellie, and this is probably the most vulnerable thing he's ever done. He says, it wasn't time that did it.
And he's barely able to not cry. Like, it's in his throat. Pedro is so good in this.
He's so good.
I mean, it's actually a crime that he's most famous for playing someone whose face you never see when he's such a good face actor. There is like so much good face acting in this episode.
So they move on, and at Joel's suggestion, Ellie breaks out the pun book, and we start going through the puns. And as they're doing this, they don't notice that a firefly has come up behind them and throws a stun grenade at their feet, and they are knocked out and taken captive. And this is like really a small note in the litany of like criticisms that we're going to aim at the Fireflies for being a moronic revolutionary organization not up to the task that they have set out before themselves.
By any means.
Are returning democracy to the United States and the overthrow of Fedra. They're bad at it. They've been trying to do it for 20 years. They've been failing. Just fucking go up and say, hands up, like, you've got a gun. Why are you wasting material?
Yeah.
Why are you throwing a grenade at people?
Not that, yeah. But spoiler alert, Marlene is in the hospital. They literally have placed all their hope on one child, a white girl with brown hair in a checked shirt who is
Traveling
traveling
alone
with
with a
man.
guy.
Yeah, like you're telling me that they don't have rounds every day being like, I wonder if they got here. I wonder if they got there. And instead you're just stunned going,
Marlene, so thank you for raising this, okay? Because Joel wakes up later in a hospital bed and Marlene is there and she was like, hey, whoops, patrol didn't know who you were. Let me stop. Marlene, why aren't you... Is this not the whole reason you're set up
are
at this
they not
hospital?
the only people who are meant to go to the hospital?
Why aren't you having a meeting every fucking day that's like, hey,
have you seen them?
We're looking for a girl and a guy traveling alone. She's 14.
Someone
He's
can do a drawing.
56. Here's what they look like. If you see that, stop them.
Also, wouldn't you have someone like on a horse in a car going out in the surrounding
you
like 20
idiots.
miles? Isn't this why they are there? Like this
It's the only reason they're there.
It's the only reason.
And there's anybody here associated with you guys that doesn't know who you're looking for? Marlene, what the fuck?
Also, as well, like, let's be real. If you're talking, we're about to get into the details of how
You
they think
moron.
they can make this vaccine, yeah? I'll tell you a spoiler. It includes the brain. You know what the brain is? Very delicate. You know what's not good for the brain?
I know, let's
stun,
see.
stun
Come on,
grenades,
great point.
concussions, which Ellie has already had so many of.
I mean, this is like CTE on two legs over here. What's
and
going
then,
on?
Let's just add another one. It's going to be fine.
Great point.
She's going into surgery. Hey, it'll be okay. We'll fix it in there. No.
So
just terrible choice.
Joel's coming out of, his concussion, and he's like, where's Ellie? Great question. Marlene dodges it by saying, man, really amazing that you made it out here alone.
We lost like half the people we came with.
I had like a whole fucking army with me, and like we barely made it through. We lost guys left and right. We got here with a ragtag group because we just got torn apart on the way. And you are so good and so competent, and such a fucking killer that you got through, and there's not a scratch on her. Really, really amazing. You are really, really incredibly capable. And she goes, how'd you do it? And Joel's like, well, Ellie.
He's like, it was all Ellie.
It was all Ellie, really. And then she says, you're the one person I didn't want to be in debt to you, but I owe you. And then Joel, again, is like, where's Ellie at? And then Marlene's, well, she's being prepped for surgery. What surgery? Well, our doctor, she explains, believes that cordyceps has grown with her since birth, and it's essentially inoculating her against infection, which is why she's immune. And so the plan is remove this special strain of cordyceps and then grow it, and then use that to vaccinate others. And Joel is kind of still confused about why this sudden rush to surgery.
Seems
like,
weird.
we're just going to do
Been
this
here
all
for
the
a
time.
while.
And then he notes, hey, wait, cordyceps grows inside the brain. And he starts to realize, wait, this means you're going to cut into her brain and she's not going to survive this. And then he immediately is like, get someone else. And Marlene says, there is no one else. And then as if this makes it better, she says, hey, don't worry. She's not afraid. We didn't tell her. There won't be any fear. What?
You just sent her to her deathbed, right? So there's so much to break down here that's just absolutely ridiculous.
Let's start with the fact, the hypocrite, what a hypocritical stance this is for a person who's ostensibly fighting to bring back democracy to the United States. And you're building that entire mission on lying to someone and putting them into a surgery that will 100% kill them. And you're not letting them know that's what's going to happen.
And also, like, just on that note, there is I truly believe there's a version where you don't, kidnap them and separate them, and you have a conversation in a room with Joel, with Ellie, and you explain the situation, and maybe there's a conversation, oh, well, you know what, we should wait a bit, maybe, Why is there so much rush?
Yeah, why are we rushing to do this?
What's going on? Also, you're going to kill the one person who is immune.
Thank you. This is the other thing that is like, wait, what? You've got one example
Just take
of
some
immunity.
blood tests.
Just one. Can we ramp up to the thing that will kill her? What about a blood test? What about
CT scan of the brain?
Is there fungus in her blood that we can grow?
That's a really good point.
Yeah, why are we jumping to, well, let's just fucking drill open her head and kill her.
Also, as well, the most interesting thing, so this is a big swing in the game. They basically say, that we think the cordyceps mutated. It's very science, super science, just you accept it. Here, there's this really detailed, interesting version of why Ellie's immune. The cordyceps essentially sends out a signal telling other cordyceps that Ellie is cordyceps.
Yeah,
right?
you don't need to infect this one.
You don't need to infect this one because she's already infected.
Yeah.
So you have a doctor who can theorize that, who has some serious science, but you can't just do a blood test. Like, are you mad? I know you have needles because we see her in the operating room. She's hooked up to like anesthesia or whatever. This is some messed up business. And Marlene is absolutely fucking this up on just so many levels. First of all, by doing it. Second of all, by telling Joel. Like, what were you thinking?
Well, let's start with there. Joel obviously becomes irate.
Does not take it well.
Marlene is then like, hey, listen, I was there when she was born, Joel. I promised her mother that I would save the child. So I understand. I'm the only one who understands. And she's trying to say, like, I understand the weight of this choice. It means a lot to me emotionally. Very, very cold comfort. Also, like, you did promise to save the child.
Now you're killing her.
And now you're killing her. And also you lied to her about it. So it's kind of like a weird...
Also as well, I've got a very interesting point.
Weird way to honor the promise.
Yeah, I feel like you don't really care about that because I have to say, I wonder why the doctor would have any idea that it had been with Ellie since birth. Sounds like someone who was there when she was born must have told him that. Sounds like this was always your plan and you were actually more interested, as we said, in Ellie as a cure, and that's why you're protecting her than because you care about... In the game, it's because she has this connection to Anna.
Yeah.
And she wants to protect her. She won't let her join the Fireflies. She wants her in the orphanage. Here, we know that Marlene has always suspected clearly that Ellie could be immune.
This version of Marlene is much more interested in Ellie as a vehicle to power, to bring the Fireflies to power, saying, hey, look what we have. We have the cure. Like,
yeah, that's a great
shouldn't
point.
we run the country? And I think, and it's a subtle shift, but I think a significant one from the game because you're right. Like in the game, there's a much more emotional drive and she really believes in what she's doing. Here, I think she's just like, fuck it. Like, this is how we win.
Yeah.
Joel is like, well, Marlene then says, I have no other choice than to do this. Joel says, I do, which is clearly, you know what that means. And then Marlene is like, well, we're not going to let you do that. I'm going to order these two guys right over here.
Two random guys.
Hey, take Joel out to the highway, then give him his backpack and this knife, and if he tries anything, shoot him. Let me stop here. You just got done telling us, Marlene, about like how your fucking infinite clown car of Fireflies got torn up crossing the country, and Joel
like
managed to
10
do it
of you
alone.
left.
Right, yeah. There's like none of you. And let me also remind you that in episode 1, your entire Boston like headquarters got torn apart during a deal for a dead battery.
A car battery.
You guys are bad at this. Joel is very good at this. And you're going to send two guys with him and not be like, hey, by the way, tie his hands together or something.
By the way, this guy is insane.
Knock
and is
him
like
out.
a world famous murderer to the
Throw
point.
another stun grenade at him and drag him out to the highway. Or just shoot him because like...
Why did they ever let him wake up? It's not... If you're going to go the terrible route that they're going, go the whole hog. If you're going to kill Ellie, kill Joel.
Spoiler alert, Joel tries something.
Shocking.
And he goes Joel Wick. He then proceeds to go on a murder spree, a brutal murder spree, killing everyone in the building, probably like 20 people, because
least.
He runs out of ammo twice.
Yeah.
And ends up like, he runs out of ammo with like a Ruger... some like Ruger Mini 14, an assault M4 assault rifle, and then he ends up with like a pistol. So he's had to stab a guy because he runs out of ammo. He just like kills everybody there. They can't shoot him. He's in the hallway. You got 3 people shooting him. They can't hit him.
They got some Star Wars like stormtrooper aim at this point. Like pew pew. It's not happening.
Get grazed.
Not
Joel
once.
Just rips through them. Again, the Fireflies. You guys like
bad.
You were brought here to guard this very, very important surgical procedure from any attack. This is the thing that's going to save the world, guys. And we've brought the one threat that could really like upend this mission here, necessarily so, because we need to separate him from Ellie. And then nobody's ready for this. You hear a gunshot and everybody's like, was that a gunshot? Like,
I better go out and look.
Like, let me go.
Not a single person goes to the surgery, like to the actual room.
Shouldn't you be like walling off the surgery from this? Like the one guy hears the gunshot and he's like, let me go investigate. in front of like a window and not realize that somebody could shoot me through it. It's like, guys, you all of you.
How did they get?
Morons.
How is it this bad for 20 years?
No wonder you'd never managed to like beat Fedra, who also sucks.
Fedra sucks. You know what I'll say? You know who successfully did it? Kathleen. She also sucked, but at least she did it. Marlene did not do it. Marlene did nothing apart from make many terrible mistakes. I will say, as humorous as this all is, because Marlene's ridiculous and the Fireflies are terrible, what I will say is, I was very impressed once again, because something we've said throughout this is like, the way that they show violence is very different from the game. The game is very much like, you are killing people, they are disposable. You're killing 300, 400, 500 people before you get here. Soldiers, infected, alive people, cordyceps, whatever. But here, even though you're essentially showing someone go on a rampage to a hospital, which is pretty horrific and like relevant and scary.
And the echoes to the real world
exactly
were
are like really there.
Unsettling.
They do this really interesting thing where they don't give it that John Wick sound, that action movie sound. They soften all the sound and they have this slow music and they said afterwards it's Joel disassociating.
Yeah.
And every time he kills someone, you see their dead body on the ground.
You see the face of that one guy.
You see them.
Yeah.
It's really horrific. You see them fall. And so even in this ridiculous situation where at this point, like everyone who's watching the show is actually backing Joel, which is unbelievable for what you're seeing.
We'll talk about that in a bit.
But like, I do think they still managed to be responsible in the way that they showed it, even though it is like in the context of the show that you're just like, what the hell were you doing?
So Joel fights his way to the surgical theater. Again, there's no guards in front of the door. There's nobody. There's no barricades. They're all dead. They, I guess, ran willy-nilly around the building.
Why didn't they just chain the door from the inside?
Again, who's training the Fireflies, who are probably like, indoctrinated as 12-year-olds and then given a gun and then not given any training, like clearly. So Joel gets there. It's a surgeon and 2 nurses. The surgeon idiotically tries to resist. Joel just kills him. And then tells the nurses, like, unhook Ellie from the machines. They do, and those are the only 2 people that he spares. Perhaps fatefully as we head into season 2.
Very fatefully.
More on that in a bit. And then he picks up Ellie, carries her down to the parking garage where there's a van ready to go. He sees it. As he's walking towards it, head clown in charge Marlene comes up behind Joel and, like, doesn't just cap him right away.
In the head.
Yeah, just cap him right now.
Nope.
Then decides to have a monologue. You can't keep her safe forever. Okay? She's got a gun on Joel. And then she tells him, perhaps accurately, hey, Ellie, whether she's killed by infected or she's killed by raiders, something bad will happen to her because, quote, we live in a broken world that you could have saved. And then Joel says, really dead on the mark here. Maybe, but it isn't for you to decide. Or you. So what would she decide, Marlene says. And Marlene says she thinks Ellie would want to go through with it, and she sees on Joel's face that he knows that Ellie would want to go through
Probably,
it. Now let's stop here again. Marlene, I think this would carry a lot more weight if you had asked her. You just asked her.
Also, like, Marlene lies a lot. Yeah, why didn't you just lie to Joel and say you did ask her?
Yeah.
Also, I mean, you should have asked her on a moral level, but again, this is the Mandalorian, like, do you really need to go to the mines? Marlene, just say Ellie said she wanted to do it. That would actually hold a little bit of weight with Joel. Joel, wait for her. We'll let her wake up. Then you can ask her. She already told me, nope, none of it's happening. And sorry, Marlene, it's time to go.
And so now Marlene says, like, it's not too late even now, even after all you've done. Killing 20 of my people plus the doctor. We can still find a way. We can still find a way. And Joel looks down at Ellie asleep in his arms, and we smash cut to the van. They're out. Ellie wakes up in the back seat. Joel's like, it's all right, you're with me. Ellie doesn't understand why she's there, why she's in a surgical gown, why she's drugged. Joel tells Ellie that the Fireflies were running some tests on you, and then raiders attacked, and guess what? I barely got you out. Also, it turns out there's a whole more people like you, people who are immune, dozens of them, and the doctors had worked with them, but they couldn't make any of it work.
No
so
cure.
They stopped looking for a cure, and that's it, and we're driving home now. And then we flash back, and we see that Joel shot Marlene, and then as she's begging for her life, he finishes her off. Knowing probably, listen, if Marlene's going to live, the Fireflies will
they're going to come for you.
Ellie takes all of this in. Joel tells her, like, I'm taking this home. He means Jackson. And clearly, even in her drugged, concussed state, understands that this doesn't kind of add up. She turns away from him.
Yeah,
gives
she
him her back.
gives him the teenage back. She's like, I'm going to sleep. Like, I can't deal with this.
And they drive through the night and eventually end up about 5 hours away from Jackson when the car breaks down. And they hike the rest of the way and end up on a ridge overlooking Jackson. They're within sight of it now. Joel talks about Sarah, how much she used to love hiking, and talking about the differences between the two. Sarah's more girly, no offense, Ellie. And Ellie's like, oh, yeah, I get it.
I'm not Ellie.
She was taller, but she would have liked you because you're very funny. And I bet you would have liked her back. Ellie says, yeah. And then finally, overlooking Jackson, Ellie tells Joel about Riley. It's like, back in KC, you asked me about the first time I killed someone. And she says, that about Riley, that she got infected and they waited it out until she lost her mind. And then finally, to spare her, Ellie killed her. And she mentions Tess and Sarah and all these other bodies that they're on her conscience. And Joel's like, no, don't worry. That's not on you. Sometimes things don't work out the way we hoped. And he goes on, talking about like hope and how you have to keep going when all seems lost. And then finally, the thing that's on Ellie's mind comes to the surface. Swear to me that everything you said about the Fireflies is true. And Joel says, I swear. And Ellie looks hard at Joel's face for any trace of a lie. I think she knows.
I think she knows. I think she doesn't want to see it.
I think it's like when a parent is lying to you, but you're just like, it's
also,
easier
what
to
can
move
you
forward.
do in that
I'll
moment?
Just move forward. Yeah.
Ellie is incredibly smart in some ways. We've seen her do dumb stuff, but she's very smart in emotional intelligence. And in that moment, I just so felt like every single possibility is going through her head. What do you do?
Yeah.
If as you suspect, this guy just killed everyone and damned the world, and he did it to protect you, what other option do you really have than to go with him? And
forward.
He will do anything to keep you alive. So it's a certain amount of safety and security. What can you do? And also, she obviously loves him in her own way. There is a really sad, fucked up bond there that came from something good and turned into something terrible. There's just so much in this last moment. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah. She says, okay, and we cut. And it's the exact ending of the game. Let's talk about that choice. Because I think one of the things we were talking about before we started recording is how interesting it is that it's so much easier to back Joel in the TV version of this because of mainly the Fireflies' incompetence, but also because of what a generous and protective and empathic figure Joel becomes over the course of this journey, and a wonderful performance by Pedro Pascal. And also because, in the video game, it's much easier to suspend your disbelief about all the stuff we've been talking about. There's much less detail, there's much less kind of story to lay in. And it's much easier to buy in a video game context that this is the one doctor who can do it, who really can save the world.
Super science. You're like, of course. Why else would they sacrifice a girl?
Yeah.
Also, as well, in the game, by the point, Joel in the game is brutal and you feel it. And the stuff with Ellie is more like his goodness shining through the cracks of this kind of horrible brutality. Whereas in the show, we've rarely seen that Joel, and it's more been we know he existed because of what other people tell us. So they're building more empathy, more connection between him and Ellie. And especially in this finale, the opening, they really show you all he wants is for her to be happy. Whether it's a funny food, the giraffe, you feel so much more love there. In the game, it's kind of hard to overstate how shocking it feels when you realize that the hero's journey you've been on is actually turning into something completely twisted and becomes this idea of the good of the many over the good of the few, or in this case, the one. And that moral weight is so much heavier. I feel like here, it feels a lot more dodgy, exploitative science. And I've been kind of blown away to see how people in our Discord, especially who'd never played the game, they're just all on Joel's side.
I think it's more of a
conversation in the game. I feel like that is one of the overarching conversation points is that choice. Whereas in the show, you're kind of just it's bleak, but he was probably right.
I think in the game, you can say flat out Joel was a bad guy.
Yeah.
Because
first of all, a bad guy who did something that you can understand through his eyes and his lens.
But still,
the ramifications are bad.
Yeah, made the worst choice. Because again, you're playing a video game. what is the goal of many video, like the goal of saving the world when you're playing a video game seems absolutely what is normal. That is,
it's a hero's journey. It's what we expect. We know where he's going.
And also,
we know what he has to do.
In a video game, you are the character. The agency's, the character's agency is your agency. You make the choices.
You are complicit in everything they do.
And so part of the real shock of the ending of the game version of The Last of Us is that you are expecting, as in many video games, that you will be given the choice. And then that choice is taken from you. That's Joel's journey in the final act.
And not only that,
Joel
you
does
have to
all
be
those
a
things.
part of it.
You have to do it, but Joel made the decision to do that. And so part of it is that real shock of, oh my God, like, my choice has been taken from me in a medium that is all about the player making the decisions. Here in the show, it's absolutely reasonable to say, wait a second, we're getting Ellie out of here. Why the rush? Why are we putting the one example of immunity under the knife into a procedure that will kill her? Why are we lying to her about it?
If you believe in it so much and you think you can say that it's definitely going to work, why wouldn't you tell her? Why is it a rush? Why didn't you just spend you guys have been traveling for a couple of weeks. We want to make sure you're healthy. You've eaten food. You're ready for this surgery. Like, you're hydrated. Little things. It seems very sus in a way that in the game, the whole world of the game is so bleak and so last minute and so rushed and so close to the edge.
And then you start adding up the litany of incompetence by the Fireflies. You know, from the very first episode when they all got killed during the dead battery deal. And the fact that, like, Marlene had to have Joel take Ellie across country because, like, all her people were fucking dead.
And they didn't know how to do it. Like, you let some random smuggler.
That's your best idea?
That's your best option. This guy who's literally like your cargo.
And then you get to the hospital.
And, by the way,
the things we've seen.
You didn't tell him why she was going across country again. Another lie.
And then you get to the hospital and all the things we've seen. You get to the doctor. Now, this is a little bit of a side point, but the doctor looked to be, let's call him 35, 30-ish. That means that doctor got his medical degree at Post-Apocalypse University Medical School. Like, do you trust this Firefly doctor to really know what the fuck he's doing?
And also, like, we don't really know what the state of the medical care is. Like, another thing that I've seen a lot of people talking about that I've seen really great convos about, especially in our Discord, is like, people have brain surgery all the time. Like, in real life, they have brain surgery, they survive. You can have keyhole surgery, you can have brain surgery where they actually cut into your brain. There is no conversation here about what kind of surgery it is. They just have my guy with a scalpel about to chop open Ellie's brain like he's Dr. Frankenstein. Like, let's have a conversation.
Yeah, Dr. Firefly is just like, I got a hammer and a chisel. I don't know. We go in and we like
it's
punch a hole in her head.
lobotomy and then just take what I need out. It's like, no, that's not going to work.
And so when you look at what a joke, really a joke of a revolutionary organization the Fireflies are, I think it absolutely makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Like, get her out of there and we can try again. Like, if she wants to try and save the world, let's do it in a much less impactful way. Again, blood test. Let's try and grow specimens.
Let's give her a choice. And then I feel like the Ellie that we know, the way they've seeded her choices, her conversations, the things that she has said and shown, if she was given a choice and it was like, you have to live in the hospital for 6 months, we're taking your blood every day, we're doing all these different tests, and maybe the eventual outcome is you have to give your life to do this, but we want to make sure it's going to work because you're the last hope. You know, maybe we can see if other people's blood's similar to yours. Maybe there's different kinds of immunities. Let her live till she's like 20.
Yeah, let her live a fucking natural life and then we try it when she's a senior citizen.
That was the other thing, was like, how hard would it have been to just have a conversation between her, Joel, Marlene, whoever, and be like, so this is what we need to do. Yeah. What's a way that we can do this that actually works, that doesn't end with Joel killing us all, which is, to be honest, to every single person who was watching, an obvious choice. Marlene, you should have known that. Like, this is Wolverine. Like, you're just
you think Joel's going to quit?
You think you're going to take Rogue away and then Wolverine's just going to be like, nah, it's fine. Like, it's not going to happen. You're going to all die berserker.
Now, Joel's lie, I think, still lands with a tremendous punch at the end.
That's I think, is the big hardcore twist that they switch out here. Yeah. It's not the choice, because the choice, it feels more organic. It's the lie. And the double lie.
I think after all that's happened, I think just from a personal safety sense, the Fireflies are not done as an organization. They're going to wonder what happened.
Someone's going to go to the hospital.
You left 2 people alive. Like, they're going to come looking for her. You have to tell her. You have to level with her. Like, okay, if you want to lie about all the other
the Raiders,
all the other like people that are immune and still survive, you at least have to say they were going to kill you.
I stopped them.
So I stopped them. And how do you think you have to level with her about that part, and you have to tell her about Marlene, and you have to tell her all of that.
Yeah.
Because I think it's her life. It's her future. It's her safety. She has to know this.
Yeah, I also think
and I get why he lied, though. I get it.
Look, there's many reasons, but the truth is, I think that the real deepest mistake Joel made is it underestimates Ellie again. Marlene underestimated Ellie and didn't give her agency. Joel is taking away Ellie's agency, but he's also underestimating her. Ellie shot somebody to save Joel's life. Ellie has killed Riley out of, a way to, save her in whatever way Ellie could. Ellie is not immune to the realities of this world. Ellie's not going to be happy that you went on a murderous rampage. And as she said, she has these kind of deaths on her conscience. But I think that's in this world and the things that they've been through and the things they've seen, that's you have a big blowout argument, you're angry for a few days, you sleep in different rooms in Jackson, and then you make up. That's just the harsh nature of this world. This is going to come back to bite him so fucking badly, especially because he didn't just lie when he was leaving, which I think if he'd have told her the truth here, he could have been I was freaked out, I didn't want to scare you, just woken up. Now I'm going to tell you the truth.
I just killed 20 people.
I was feeling some way.
Coursing through my veins.
But instead he swears to her her face and just lets the lie continue. And that's obviously going to be simmering under that relationship until, season 2. And I think the most interesting thing is going to be, this show has deeply expanded on a lot of the stuff that we never got to see in the game. And I wonder if that, when we see these seasons that are going to come afterwards that are going to adapt part 2, is there going to be interim time? Is this going to be an expansion of that time, the 7-year jump that we got when the game came out? I'll be very interested to see how they handle that, because I feel this lie is going to end up being the original sin for Joel and everything that comes. It's not even the killing at this point. We know
the
if you
killing
played the
just,
game, the killing's going to have a ramification, but I feel between him and Ellie, it's going to be that lie.
I mean, the killing was honestly justified. I think, in the
context of the TV show,
in the moral logic of this story on this show in this context, I think it was right. What final thoughts on the season? I think it was heartbreaking. It really got me seeing how Anna's life ended, passing that lineage on to Ellie, who, by the way, not to make this another point about how Marlene sucks, but it's Marlene promised I'll keep her safe, and then it's, what did you do? You put her in a fucking federal orphanage and never had contact with her?
Yeah, and not even that. Why is Marlene just never you're about to put this girl under to kill her? You could have just turned around and been I know your mum. She was a real badass. I was there when she died. She really fought for you. When Ellie, that was the thing that kind of blew my mind, and I think sets up this version of Marlene to have this more sinister bent, which is the first, in episode 2 or episode 1, when Ellie and her are talking, and Ellie's oh, are you my mom? And she's no, but she also doesn't say, I knew your mom.
Yeah, she doesn't. She could have said anything.
She could have said anything. And I think that again plays into these problems that these tiny choices that seem small that end up having these huge kind of life-ending ramifications. I loved that. I loved seeing Ashley Johnson come back, the original Ellie actor, to play Ellie's mom.
It was so eerie too.
They did a really good job
to have the voice of Ellie from the game talking to baby Ellie in the show. I thought the opening was that opening was so horror movie in a way a lot of the show hasn't been. That has been one of the big things that surprised me that I enjoy. I love horror. I love horror TV. I don't think we have enough of it, but I think they made the right choice to make this more of a drama with it's kind of this post-apocalyptic drama with a tinge of horror around the edges that sometimes explodes. And I think that was the right choice. I agree. Build on the characters, because the relationship between them is why this whole thing works.
Yeah.
Just a wonderful, heartbreaking, really moving season of TV. I can't wait for season 2.
Episode 3 still, I say, best, if not one of the best episodes of TV that we'll get this year. And I can't wait to see it on every list. I can't wait to see it break into award shows, because that shit is so good.
Up next, Nerd Out.
Warning. This Nerd Out contains spoilers for The Last of Us Part 2 game. And more than likely that means that it contains spoilers for The Last of Us Season 2 on HBO. That is not out yet, but they're going to make it. In today's Nerd Out, where you tell us what you love or why, or you share a theory, that you're passionate about, which you've been doing more and more often, and we love to hear it. Harrison shares a thought and a dream for a potential Last of Us Part 3, inspired by our nerd out from Rob a few episodes back, which I love because this is now like we are programming the Last of Us Part 3 story. Like it's happening here, and everyone's ideas are incredible.
So Harrison's opinion, and I'm going to summarize, is essentially that Part 3 of the Last of Us video game, the third game, is going to delve into Ellie as a leader. You know, the game has explored the kind of like broken organizational structures of Fedra and also the Fireflies. Harrison's idea is, what if Ellie, in a very hero's journey kind of move, becomes that pivotal figure that rallies people to find a cure and to try and forge a better world. And living up to that ideal contained in the Firefly motto, when you're lost in the darkness, look for the light. And Harrison, as kind of supporting details, points to various moments throughout The Last of Us, the show, that point to Ellie as a leader. You know, I don't think it's great that, one of the main data points is David saying, oh, you're so charismatic, a leader. I don't know how much we can trust that. But I do think that there is something to Ellie as a real fierce fighting figure who, because of the fact that she is immune, if that was ever to become known in a kind of like Neo in the Matrix way.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's very chosen one.
Would just add a level of mystique to her that you would imagine would become almost messianic. Like I could imagine if it becomes publicly known that Ellie is immune, like people just wanting to reach out and just like touch her. So I could see this happening. Harrison.
I really like this take because so much of The Last of Us, the show, and us playing the game, and if you've played Part 2, this is also the same, is very bleak. Part 2 even more so. It's like one of the most depressing video games. Like fulfilling and satisfying, but incredibly bleak.
It is very, very bleak.
Just like so depressing.
People say it as people call it a criticism. It's not a criticism. The game is intentionally.
Yeah, it's not a mistake. Like this is on purpose.
And absolutely, objectively, very, very bleak. I'm not nihilistic in the sense that there's no hope at all and no redeeming value, but it is bleak.
And I like something Harrison said was like he sees The Last of Us Part 2, the game, as basically like Empire Strikes Back. It's like your character's at the lowest point. And then like if you look at the trilogy format, that means your third one could have hope. It could present something different. I would love to see Ellie get to go on a hero's journey of her own that is like not defined by violence or somebody trying to use or exploit her or revenge or all those themes that we've seen. I think that could be really cool. There's definitely, as you were saying it, there's definitely like you could see a Hunger Games-esque Mockingjay style. Yeah. Like she is this radical revolutionary leader who's also a symbol. Also, look, Ellie is smart. When we see Ellie in Part 2, you're talking about an adult. When you see her in Part 3, she's going to be
a grizzled and hardened adult.
So when you see her in Part... I mean, imagine if Ellie was publicly immune. Imagine if the reason she felt safe to do that is because she had a hospital and labs that were just constantly synthesizing her blood or trying to find a cure via her blood. There's all different ideas and ways. If she finds out the way that she was, made immune, just want to say, she has Blade's origin. Like, can we just say that? She's a daywalker. Like, this is literally Blade's origin. So I love that. But yeah, I think this is really cool. I don't think it would need to be some great straying away from the game because you could still have those moments of bleakness. You still have infected. But you can add a more hopeful mission for Ellie and one that kind of eschews like the darkness and violence of her past. I love this idea. And I love
it too.
That it was inspired by another nerd out. That's really cool.
Well, I think when you're thinking about like where would this story go, I would love to see a way that Abby and Ellie could work together, even if they're obviously there things between them would never be okay.
No.
But I think it would be fascinating to watch it if it could work.
I also think that's like to me, that is like a fan. You are going to have fans just like watching. There's going to be fans who hate it. There's going to be fans who love it. But that is, I'm sure, the nature of a million fanfics about this already. But I love this idea that for the greater good, these two people who were torn apart by this horrific situation and who were enemies could come together as like reluctant allies to work together. I think that is so interesting.
Thanks, Harrison. If you have theories or passions you want to share, hit us up at xray@crooked.com. Instructions, as always, in the show notes. Well, that's it for us, Rosie, and that's it for The Last of Us Season 1.
Oh, my goodness. Congrats to us for finishing The Last of Us. Congrats to you if you're listening for finishing
Anything
The Last
to plug?
You can find me, Rosie Marks, at Instagram and Letterboxd. I wrote about every single episode of The Last of Us, including the final episodes where I wrote a couple of pieces. They're all at IGN. I wrote some cool pieces about Polygon, about the new Luther movie, which is absolutely bananas. And also, I just plugged to say, go and watch Scream, because it's really good. I enjoyed it very much. Scream 6, we will be talking about it more.
Catch the next episode on Friday, March 17th for episode 3, The Mandalorian. Remember, we're bringing you 2 episodes a week.
Two.
That's every Wednesday and Friday on the podcast platform of your choice. Check us out.
And if you want to see us as well as hear us, subscribe on YouTube, where you can now watch full episodes of us here in the studio and also sometimes on Zoom.
Also follow us on @XRVPod on Twitter. And there's our Discord, where you can meet up with lots of friendly people who also listen to the show. It's a great place to hang out and meet other people, and we're hanging out there. Come see us. 5-star ratings, 5-star reviews. We got to have them. We need them. You got to give them to us. Here's one from Jeffin43. It's a shame that we can't rate this higher than 5 stars.
Whoa.
My vision has been X-rayed. Thank you, Jeffin43. See you next time. Hey, Mike, it's his stuff from Marlene. Yeah, I just want to talk about the Fireflies today, Mike. You know, I've been a Firefly supporter for 20 years, ever since the fall. I've been really a fan of what they're doing. You know, I got the Firefly shirt, I got the sticker, I got the stencil. But I think if you look at it fairly, Mike, and it's taken a long time for me to open my eyes to this, if you really look at it, Mike, the one thing that they can do is spray paint that symbol all over the place. That's the only thing they do good, Mike. They failed at everything. They can't overthrow Fedra. All they've done is ruin QZs across the country. And then Marlene, when she had it in the bag, she fumbled the bag, Mike. I'm not going to go into it. I'm not going to belabor the point, Mike. But she ruined it. Okay, Mike? Bad plan all around. She's bad at organizing. The Fireflies were not prepared for what they had to do. And not only that, but, you know, I'm sad to say I supported them when they indoctrinate kids. They put guns in kids' hands and they don't train them up and have them ready to do what they got to do, Mike. I'll take my answer off the air. Thank you.